Guess who is back? The internet's back for me. And because the internet's back for me, it actually means I can finally do a show. It's not complain about Spectrum for all that they're not able to do for me. So welcome back. It's been a while, but I'm here. Man, I'm excited today. One, it's cold as hell outside. My goodness, it's freezing out there, man. I don't know what the heck we've gotten into, but I'm not excited about that as much as I'm excited that, man, we're gonna have like one hell of a recruiting show, recruiting updates today, because Sam Spiegelman is from Rivals is going to be on in just a couple of seconds, kind of breaking down where Texas stands with this recruiting class, the 2026 class, and kind of giving like a bunch of his insights and expertise into that. So let me just go ahead and retweet this real quick so I can actually give Sam my undivided attention once he gets on. And yes, Rodolfo, I am back. So let's do it without further ado. Let's get into some recruiting stuff, recruiting topics. Let me go ahead and bring in the man, the myth, the legend, Sam Spiegelman. You know what's crazy, Sam? I cannot believe that yesterday was the first day you and I actually ever followed each other on X. Like, how did that even happen?
Well, I don't mean to make it seem like you're the big shot, but I certainly need to point that out. You are the big shot. I was definitely following you for an extended period of time during my first tenure at Rivals. Obviously, your work speaks for itself. You're incredible. You're the best on the beat. And we have so many shared connections that I feel like I've talked about you, or you've been in the conversation. But it's great to finally connect with you. I'm humbled and I was ecstatic. I mean, how often do you get excited to get a follow back from Anwar? So I was feeling myself yesterday. I was in a whole different mood.
Well, listen. If you're gonna talk like that, you can come on every day. I'm just quite honest with you. I mean, you got a mirror on there, and I can definitely do mirror on the wall if that's what you're gonna do, Sam. But I appreciate it, man. You do a fantastic job. And I really thought from just a writing standpoint, you had a Texas update the other day that I got to say was just so comprehensive. And I mean, you put a lot of work into it. So kudos to you. In fact, everybody, I'm going to put this in the link for you in the chat for you guys want to kind of check it out because it's really, really good work here. I'll just put that right there. Sam, I want to start kind of where you started. I want to go overall before we kind of get into some specifics, right? And so you start off by pointing out the success that Sark has had as from a recruiting standpoint. It's been interesting because when Sark gets on the landscape here at Texas, Alabama is clearly the big dog in recruiting. Nick Saban is, kind of gets what he wants. So is Kirby Smart. And so is obviously Ohio State. How has Texas been able to kind of creep into not only that air, but into your, as you point out, actually finish with a couple of top one classes?
Yeah, well, we're coming off of a season, a cycle rather, in which they did sign the number one class. And since Sark got there, they've signed top five classes every single year. You talked about the assistant coaches and coordinators that Sark brought over from Alabama largely. That effect was real. And then you talk about the infrastructure behind the scenes. And I think this is the most important part. He brought over general manager Brandon Harris as soon as he got to Austin. Brandon has only risen behind the scenes. Obviously, I think he's in his second year now as the GM. But he has built a roster that not only can compete in whatever conference, but this was a roster built to compete with these SEC teams. They knew that this move to the SEC was coming for a while. They identified the weaknesses, the strengths of the roster. They filled those tremendously. And I think the biggest thing that Texas has lacked, obviously, like as we talked about at the top of the show, we've both been covering this state for some time at this point. I think you're finally seeing the coaches and the coordinators to take really great talent, because there's always been great talent at Texas, and helping them, cultivate it, help them bring it out, put them in positions to succeed, positions to grow. We've seen body transformations in Austin. We've seen growth of players like Quinn Ewers. I think what Sark has done with this staff is he's not only made it. Texas has always brought in talent. It's taking that talent to the next level, and I think that Sark as a recruit, as a coach, obviously no question, everyone will talk about him being one of, if not the best offensive mind in the game. But where Sark has really evened the playing field with like the Alabamas and Georgias and Ohio States, he's a very personable guy. He's a West Coast guy. He's very friendly. Here in Texas, if you're friendly, people will talk your head off.
Sure.
And he does a fantastic job of nurturing those relationships, not only with the kids, with coaches around the state, which is critical, and really the parents. In this NIL era, parents want to know that their kids are going to be taken care of, both on the field and off the field. And Sark, I think, really puts those eases. Makes it an easy transition. Obviously, he is a parent. He's an easy to get in touch guy, and he relates to not only the kids but their parents.
He's also been able to do something which is, the hard part for a lot of programs, which is recruit quarterbacks. And if you ain't got one, you ain't got one, right? It's just kind of where that is. It's so interesting. Like, go back to, I'm sure you've done it for a long time, where Texas was just trying to figure out what to do for Tyrone Swoops of the world, or Gerard Hurds and stuff. Talk about just being able, starting from Quinn to not only what they even have in this class, and maybe other stuff, like what they've been able to do for that quarterback perspective as well.
Yeah, well, Quinn is a great starting point, because when Quinn was at South Lake Carroll, Sark was at Alabama, and that was the reason why Quinn went all the way to Tuscaloosa for a game day back that fall, and he loved that visit because of Sark. Then I thought, Quinn being an in-state kid coming back home, that made a lot of sense given that relationship. But when you look at really his body of work, really I think took to another level when he recruited Arch and won that recruiting battle. You have to give a ton of credit to AJ Milwee. AJ Milwee is a big reason why, again, Sark's offensive track record speaks for itself, his personable approach as a head coach. And then AJ Milwee is a dog behind the scenes as a recruiter and as a coach. If you talk to Arch, if you talk to KJ Lacey, you talk to any of these quarterbacks that's been recruited by Texas or is committed to Texas or considering Texas, AJ Milwee is a huge part of that. So the offensive attention is huge for quarterbacks. Obviously, the success of different quarterbacks, of different receivers, offensive linemen, all the position groups have had a ton of success at Texas because of this background of this offensive staff, and quarterbacks in particular. I mean, they've seen this again, the steps that Quinn has made, both on the field and as a young man. I mean, he has matured tremendously under Sark's leadership. And I think you see Arch's succession plan, how carefully that was plotted. That doesn't accidentally happen. That comes very carefully. And I think that they've created an environment where people can be competitive, but also they can be a little bit patient, and they're very selective with their quarterbacks. They're selective about the character of the people that they're bringing into this program. They have to check several different boxes in terms of their competitiveness, their skill set, their athletic traits, and also their maturity. And I think that with quarterbacks, they've done it as good or better than any other program in the country since Sark got here.
Let's talk about the 2026 class, right? And I want to start with the offensive linemen, because there's two guys that are getting dominated, right? It's John Turntine, Felix Ojo. I don't know, were you at the Under Armour camp
Yes.
just recently? So you got a chance to see Felix in person. Your thoughts on, and then of course there's Zayden as well, Zayden Krempin. Your thoughts, at least starting with those three. Thoughts on those guys as athletes, where Texas kind of stands with them.
Yeah, well, John and Felix are both in the conversation as the best player in the state for this year. Obviously, both play premium positions. They do it differently. John, obviously, his father played at TCU, so it's kind of in his bloodline. We saw him at a Rivals camp last year in Dallas. He's a skinny kid. Some coaches have joked, I don't know if he's a tight end or a tackle, but at 6'4", almost 300 pounds with that insane length. I mean, that's a dream scenario if you're Kyle Flood trying to say, I'm going to put 30 pounds on this kid who's got incredible feet, incredible length, fantastic athletic profile, and obviously the experience at the position. Felix has been someone who has obviously had a tremendous junior season. Then seeing him the last month, 2 or 3 different times between the Navy All-American Bowl in San Antonio and then at this Under Armour Next camp in Dallas, he was our top performer. Obviously, the tape speaks for itself, but I think that being in this camp setting environment, I think that was like an eye-opener for him, and I think he very quickly got acclimated to it. he trained and he dominated the next time he went out in one of these one-on-one settings against KJ Ford and Landon Barnes, some of the best edge defenders in this state, in the country. So Felix, I think, is, like John, right on that cusp of that 5-star conversation. These are two of the best offensive linemen, not only in Texas, but in the country. Both are very high priorities for Texas in this 2026 class. If they're able to walk away with one, if not both of them, we're talking about, again, Texas being in the conversation for the number 1 class in the country. And then Zayden Krempin, the other offensive tackle you mentioned, is also very high on Texas, very high on Kyle Flood's board. What I love about Zayden is, kind of like John, he's a little bit skinnier. So there's definitely room to put on weight, but he's got fantastic feet. He's very technically sound. He plays for that Prosper offensive line, which has like 4 to 5 Division I prospects every single year. He's very well coached. He takes the coaching really well. And again, someone we saw last year, a couple of bumps and bruises when he's going up against these talented edge defenders, really took a step up and playing with leverage, using that length and some physical touch to pass protect. And I thought he was one of the top performers again Sunday at Under Armour Next.
And I think which one is it? Turntine? He already has a visit scheduled for Texas in the summer. Is am I reading that correct, or was that Ojo?
All 3 have their official visits locked. June 20th is going to be the big official visit weekend for I believe it's Felix and John. I could be wrong on Felix. He might be the weekend before. And Zayden will also be there June 13th. Listen, again, if they walk away with I would not put it past them to walk away with all 3 of these offensive tackles in state. That might be a bit of a lofty task. Of course, kids want to go in and compete for spots earlier than later. But at this point in time, I think it's safe to say Texas is the leader for Felix Ojo, with Ohio State closing the gap. Texas A&M is giving Texas the biggest run for Turntine. And then you have schools like Texas A&M, LSU, and Michigan really coming hard for Zayden.
Okay. Let's talk about Booby. Everyone's favorite name, and it's the name that gives every child in my chat sophomoric jokes here. But I don't know what to make of this, Sam, because here's why I'm on this, because it seems like Texas is in the mix. It seems like there's other programs that may be higher on his list. But then I don't know what to think, Sam, because I was doing a show yesterday, and I'm like, well, I remember when Texas missed Evan Stewart or Micah Hudson or DeCorian Moore. Ended up being just fine. They missed DeCorian Moore last year, and people thought the sky was falling, and then they just go ahead and get Khalid Lockett, right? They get J.B. French, and they get Michael Terry, they get Dalen McCutcheon. So it's like, I don't know. I can't panic in February as relates to this, but give me a Booby update and where they're standing with them.
Yeah, Booby, we're just days removed from him obviously reclassifying to this 2026 class. He's now the number 3 receiver in the country, I think number 15 overall. I can tell you this, Anwar, he didn't make this decision without consulting Steve Sarkisian and Chris Jackson. They have been kept abreast of this decision throughout the entirety of this process. I think that should tell you where Texas is sitting big picture. I think some other schools in that mix would be A&M, LSU, and USC. This is a kid from North Louisiana, just outside of Shreveport, moved to DeSoto, obviously early on in his life. I don't expect him to play very far away from home, wherever you identify home as, North Louisiana or the Dallas Metroplex. He's going to officially visit Texas. Chris Jackson is our reigning Rivals Recruiter of the Year. As you mentioned, usually if you miss on DeCorian Moore at Duncanville when you're Texas, you're going to be depressed about the receivers you're bringing in. When you talk about Day and Khalid and Jamie French and Michael, I mean, Chris Jackson has the resume. If a player does not want to be a part of Texas's program, he's going to find someone else who is certainly capable of it and wants to be. Booby, I think, has shown the inclination that he is very interested in Texas, been there as much or more than any other program. I think official visits are going to be very telling here. He's already locked in to go to USC and LSU. LSU is like in a similar situation to Texas, where they're trying to keep obviously the best players in state. That's a huge element before NIL and even more so after. And I think it'll come down to LSU, Texas, and A&M for Booby, with official visits being kind of the catalyst, because he will commit before his senior season.
Sam Spiegelman from Rivals.com. By the way, there is a super chat that just came in here. This was just all because of you. It's Longhorn Football Edits. It says, "Good morning, fellas. Love the recruiting updates with the hook'em emoji." That is their C4 there. That's what gets their thing going. And of course, you have your coffee there. Tell me about the other receivers. Where does Texas stand with some of the other receivers in this class that aren't named Booby Feaster?
Yeah, again, this is a state that is not lacking wide receiver talent. The name Jalen Lott should obviously ring a bell. We know that his father played at Texas. Jalen Lott, it's actually his birthday today.
Yeah.
Listen, Jalen Lott has the who's who of teams recruiting him: Oregon, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama is expected to get him on campus. He was at Texas last month. He was at A&M. He didn't make it to a couple of other visits. This is not a super sexy update. I don't expect Jalen Lott to be able to escape the state of Texas. Not to sound like he's a prisoner by any means, but when you are an explosive receiver like he is, with family ties to the program, with Chris Jackson recruiting you to be in a position like an Xavier Worthy just had at Texas, I think it's going to be a lot for Jalen Lott to turn down. He's going to officially visit schools like Oregon and A&M and Oklahoma and Alabama, and it will get testy at times, I'm sure, for Texas fans. But in the long run, I do love where the Longhorns are sitting with the legacy. And here's another recruit that, again, you talk about the talent in state. They went into San Antonio for Michael Terry last year. Jordan Clay is another San Antonio top 100 prospect that has Texas in his lead group along with Baylor. People are going to maybe poo-poo on Baylor and think that this might be a lock for Texas. And a lot of people do think that Texas will ultimately win out. Sark loves Jordan Clay. So does Chris Jackson. Baylor has come on really strong. He's going to officially visit both those schools, and I expect him to stay in state as well. But you're looking at a receiving core potentially with someone like Jalen Lott, Jordan Clay, and Booby Feaster. You have three in-state guys that are incredibly talented, differing skill sets, differing body types. Jordan Clay is more of that big bully on the outside, where Jalen Lott is explosive, downfield threat, and Booby Feaster, we just saw at Under Armour Next. We've seen him at the 5-star challenge. He's a very polished wide receiver one that can work inside and out. If Texas and Chris Jackson are able to just recruit the state of Texas next year, I think they're going to bring in another haul like they had in 2025 that is just oozing with talent. And I think that they're in I call it striking distance, right? Because nothing is guaranteed in recruiting. I think we definitely learned that in the NIL era. But I would say Texas is in very good striking distance with all three of these in-state guys.
You know, I thought Texas was in real good striking distance with Javion Osborne and KJ Edwards. Tashard Choice leaves, and as you know, from the recruiting standpoint, huge on the recruiting impact, especially in the state of Georgia. He leaves, and within moments, EJ Crowell, he cancels his visit to Texas, right? And we're just like, oh man, not what to do. And now there's a little bit of like, okay, I don't know the hell they're going to hire, but they need to hire somebody quickly and somebody good. Where do you think Texas is right now, but just not having a choice there? Do you think that's a huge blow for Texas as it relates to a guy like Javion Osborne or KJ Edwards?
I think temporarily, potentially, but I'm not throwing out where Texas stands. Texas has gained a ton of traction with Javion Osborne over the past couple of months. A lot of that due to Tashard Choice putting in the work with the 4-star. But also Steve Sarkisian is a part of this recruitment. Other coaches are involved in this recruitment. I can tell you this: Tashard Choice it probably put Texas, I wouldn't say in front, but back in, again, striking distance with Javion Osborne. He had proclaimed Michigan to be his leader after visiting Ann Arbor, developing a relationship up there with those coaches. I still think, depending on who the hire is, Texas is going to have a shot. He's going to take an official visit to Texas. His visit to January, again, leveled the playing field tremendously. I think when it's all said and done, I think he's obviously a candidate to lead the state. But if Texas has a good hire, Steve Sarkisian's track record on the offensive side of the ball with running backs is going to catch Javion Osborne's eyes. And KJ has told me over the weekend he's going to commit on August 2nd. He's got 4 official visits locked in: Texas A&M, Baylor, and SMU. Texas has been the team in the driver's seat with KJ, one of the most explosive, speedy running backs from Carthage out there in East Texas for the past year and change. Even without Tashard Choice, I actually still think Texas is the team to beat with KJ Edwards. That family loves Austin. Texas has done a fantastic job recruiting the Carthage football program over the years. And when you talk about speed and home run threat, KJ really fits that bill. With Texas love to do under Tashard Choice. I think Sark loved that as well. I would expect him still to be in this class. He made a comment along the lines of Tashard Choice wanted to get back to the NFL. That's obviously my goal as well, and I think he can respect that. I don't think it's going to hold anything against Texas in KJ's recruitment.
Maybe grab you for like 5 more minutes, and I'll let you run. You in your article, and you could just, I'm doing it to make it easy for you to reference. You talked about some of the guys that Texas was in striking distance from maybe on the outside looking in, but this team that they close strong. They always have a way of just closing strong, and they may be on the outside looking in, and then there's Justice Terry. So who are some of the guys in 2026 that maybe on the outside looking in, but you just look at the staff, you say, all right, well, I'm definitely not going to sleep on Texas as relates to these guys.
There's actually quite a few. I'm really happy that you asked this question. There's quite a few, like Justice Terry that everyone had penciled into Georgia and then was practicing with the Longhorns before their college football playoff games. Yeah, there's a couple. And listen, you're 100% right that Tashard Choice leaving this coaching staff is tough, especially with their imprint in the Southeast and in the state of Georgia, which they have loved to recruit the past couple of years and are trying to do so more as they obviously get more accustomed and acclimated to the SEC. But I can tell you this, one player who's very high on Texas's board, Rivals #1 linebacker out of the Atlanta area, Tyler Atkinson, behind the scenes has a very close relationship with Anthony Hill, trains in the same location. Tyler's been to campus a few times, loves Texas, loves not only his relationship with Tashard Choice, but with Sark, with Coach Nielsen, with Coach PK. Tyler Atkinson, I believe that he will take an official visit to Texas. That's been in the works behind the scenes. Right now, I would say Georgia and Ohio State are the two teams at the top with Tyler. Again, but you're talking about a dark horse. I have Texas in that striking distance list because I think if he returns to Austin and has a fantastic official visit, sees a chance to play earlier for a coaching staff that just put Anthony Hill in a position to be a day one pick potentially, I think that's really going to catch his eye. Sticking with that theme, that Georgia theme, he's Kent, 6'7", 260 pounds out of South Georgia. He's going to be in Austin on June 13th to 15th. We have him listed as a tight end, but as I just listed off his measurables, this guy is probably going to turn into an offensive tackle. He's got the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Banks recruiting him. I can imagine when he gets on campus and sees what Kyle Flood has done with guys like Cam Williams in the past. I think it's going to be hey, you can come here, you can play tight end, you can play whatever you want. But Kent has had a very fluid recruitment with schools like Florida, Alabama, all, very much in the mix, but this is very fluid. I could see him landing in Austin. He was there a couple of times in season. And then I'll give you one more. He's one of the best tight ends in the country, Caden Prothero, again, out of South Georgia. This is a kid that, because he's from Georgia, people are penciling in to Georgia, to Auburn, to Alabama. But again, this is from South Georgia. We're hearing his recruitment is very fluid. He's going to be in Austin for their big official visit weekend, June 20th to 22nd. That's the weekend that, Steve Sarkisian and the staff are going to try to close. And that's going to be not only Prothero's first visit in Austin, it'll be his last visit before likely making a decision, with a really freakishly talented pass catcher like Caden Prothero going to get recruited to see what Jatavian Sanders just did, what Gunnar Helm just did in Austin. I'm not ruling out Texas making a big move with Caden Prothero. I got my eyes on him, and I'll throw one more just because I'm looking at him. Talking about Texas's success recruiting Louisiana.
Yeah.
Dylan Berryman out of North Louisiana was in Austin in January. He's been to Austin quite a few times. He's really connected with Kenny Baker, who is certainly in the mix for our recruiter of the year, like Chris Jackson won. LSU has been the favorite for Berryman. I think that the gap has kind of been closed a bit between State and Texas. He's another name that, I don't think that Texas is in the lead right now, but if they're another visit back, I wouldn't be surprised if he was another talented Louisiana kid that made his way to Austin, like Derek Williams and Arch Manning and Will Randall and others.
Sam, tell everybody how they can follow you on X or any other things, socials there, because you obviously, I mean, you talked about Jeff Banks being excellent and Sark and everybody else, but you gave a 5-star performance this morning. So tell everybody how they can follow you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you having me on. I'm on X at Sam Spiegs, SAMSPIEGS, on Instagram, where I guess we're putting a lot of our work now too. Sam Spiegelman _ and I'm trying to make my presence felt on that orange board. So if you need something, just reach out to me, and I'll be there posting. So just don't be afraid to ask me something.
Well, you didn't give them your OnlyFans account, Sam, or that's a private one. No, but just joking with you, Sam Spiegelman. I put his article already in the link if you guys missed it. But Sam, get out of here. Go ahead and have a fantastic day. Thank you so much. But please, we'll have to do this again, okay, brother?
Absolutely, man. Stay warm out here, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate you, Sam Spiegelman. Obviously from Rivals.com. Killed it. Killed it. This is what happens when Ump gets his internet back. I'm bringing good guests. And finally, we had a good guest that came in. If you missed any portion of that interview, you joined me late. I know a lot of people you guys joined late. Some of you guys watch it on replay, so it won't even matter. But if you joined late, go back there. We covered a lot of things as far as the offensive line is concerned, some wide receiver stuff. I put the link, the link to his article. I believe it's a free story, by the way, but I put a link to his article in the chat. So if you missed it, go back and put it in. In fact, for those, you know what? I'll just make it easier for you. Wait, this is the printable article. Anyway, go find it. All I can tell you, go find it. Hold on, I'm gonna do it right now for y'all. Just so someone's like, well, Michael, make me scroll. Hold on. I got you covered. All right, here we go. I've got it right here. I had the printable article, y'all, so that's why I didn't put that one in there. So I didn't put that in there for you. All right, now you guys have got it in the chat. Go and check out his full article, full recruiting. He only gave us a couple of things. It's a full recruiting breakdown of guys that you need to know. But essentially, what Sam is saying, the genesis of his article is, as you start looking at the 2026 class, it looks like Texas is in really good standing with a lot of people. And, we kind of sometimes hit that panic button. We're like, oh, man, I don't know. And, in February, that thing happens, when we do that thing. And then eventually Texas just does what they do, which is go ahead and close and get all the top name guys, and all the panic ends up being for nothing. That's why, yesterday when we were talking about Booby Feast, I'm like, all right, well, okay, so Texas misses on a guy and they get 5 more who are elite. News at 11, right? Shoulder shrug, right? So, but in any case, go back, check those things out. I gotta make some phone calls, and I got a doctor's appointment. I'll tell y'all about that tomorrow. Y'all take care. Remember what I always say: live each day like it's your last. One day it will.